reporting for Katie Chats here in Toronto, Ontario, with director Sebastian. How does it feel to have been nominated for so many Gemini Awards?
Like a second fiddle, I guess, because I haven't won any yet, and but that's okay. I think it's an honor to be nominated, and at the end of the day, I mean, these are award shows, so there's a subjectivity in the voting process. So once you're in that top 5, I think everyone's a winner. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but you look at the Oscars, it's like really, at the end of the day, it's just that however many voters picking that one movie, but it's not necessarily the best. Right?
What was the best part about working on Kenny versus Spenny for so long?
The lawlessness. As far as any Canadian show I've ever worked on, it was the most lawless show ever, and that's what I guess the magic spark was. It's just the fact that we were spending taxpayers' money basically buffooning around with such a primal but awesome concept. So simple, good versus evil, Ernie versus Bert, you know, and just kind of goofing around and just kind of experimenting with reality television. If I can go on, I mean, like really when we started Kenny versus Spenny, I think it was right at the dawn of reality television in the way that we know it now. It was like 2003 was our first season. The Osbournes was just getting hot. There was like none of, like I think Survivor was on, but like just, it was the beginning of that genre. So it really was this sort of cool, exciting medium that just kind of was blowing up, and we were part of that, so.
Do you think that reality television has had a big influence on regular television?
It has. I think it's up the production value. Like you look at shows now like Breaking Bad, Mad Men, like awesome productions value, Game of Thrones. It's kind of made, I think the viewer demands something better in scripted television. Not that the mediocre stuff isn't going to still thrive, because there's a budget for it and there is an audience for it, but reality is definitely giving a kick in the ass to scripted.
You have been directing Love Trap. How realistic are those relationships, and do they last?
It's hard to say, because I think the spark that happens in the moment in front of a camera, in front of a giant crew and a host and all the pressure, people, I think especially being Canadians, really want to be polite and make things work. When someone's saying to you, hey, I've had a big crush on you for whatever, and you know what I mean? People don't want to let that down. So that initial thing is usually a positive one, and then ultimately I think reality sets in and people realize, you know what, there's no cameras around and you're cool, but maybe this isn't right, and I don't know.
Do you think that usually the people are genuinely surprised?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think especially here people don't expect to be punked like that, and they don't, especially with something like that, because it is a well-intentioned show. It's not like you were, you know, screwing people over, but there's definitely that huge element of surprise when a camera and a host, actually 3 cameras and a host and a crew of 30 people suddenly emerge from the woodwork, and you've been going through this weird illusion. It's like being robbed, or I don't know what's a better analogy, but you see the people trying to piece together what exactly they've been experiencing for the last few hours, and what's real. Like, is this real? Do you really like me? I mean, there's cameras here now, so is this real? Like, how much of this is staged? How much of this is actual, like, reality? So, yeah.
Do you have any, like, what's the craziest story, the craziest thing that's ever happened?
On that show, or talking Kenny versus Spenny's craziest shit I've ever seen?
Actually, the craziest thing that has ever happened while you were directing.
Oh God, I think things involving smoke and fire and illegal drugs. I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, I mean, no matter what, however, you know, however you deal it, I mean, at the end of the day, the broadcaster is the one who says, okay, that you're spending money and we're the stewards of that money, and you need to spend it, you know, correctly and properly, and there's insurance and the production company and all this stuff, and we have to assure them that everything's going to be done responsibly. But I think with Kenny versus Spenny, there's always this gray zone of like, you know, don't really do it, but we're going to turn our backs, and then we go and do it. So yeah, I mean, we had sulfuric acid once, but it's funny, you know, the bigger bang we went for, it wouldn't always pay off. The sulfuric acid, Kenny had this, we were so excited, there's all this safety stuff, we go through training and everything, and we're in the basement, we got all this mannequin, all this stuff, and he starts pouring it on things, and nothing happened. It was so disappointing. We poured it on bananas and oranges, and it was like pouring water on it. It was so stupid, but it was always, I think the serendipity was always the king in that show. It was always the weird, unusual things. Like it's like the game of life where you kind of set everything up and let the ball roll. Mm-hmm. Those are always the most rewarding, gratifying things, because then you get crazy shit happening that you could never, ever, ever ever plan. And yeah, so blowing shit up wasn't always the best thing, but.
What advice would you give to an aspiring director?
It's not who you know, it's how well you know them. You have to be reliable, you have to be creative, but almost more importantly, you have to know how to get along with people, because no one wants to work with an asshole. And I'd say that to anybody in the business, whether it's being an aspiring camera operator or a sound person. I've worked with really good camera people, but if they're an asshole, I don't want to work with them again. But I've worked with people who are kind of up and coming that are still creative, but you like hanging out with them. It makes all the difference. But yeah, and there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, right? Like I think in the industry, people, it's the emperor's new clothes where, and I know this just because I've, tried to become a director for so long, I'm still working at it, but I mean, you know what I mean? But people's opinion of you makes all the difference. When people say, okay, you're the director, you're in charge, and what you say goes, versus, people who don't know you might go, well, what kind of experience do you have? Like I'm continually, even now, you can look at my CV, even though I went to film school, people are continually questioning, do you have experience working with, like I was asked like a few weeks ago, do you have experience working with tweens or teenagers? And it's like, are you kidding me? Like Kenny versus Spenny, who worked with everything from the handicapped to Leatherman and seniors and children and babies and like everything, you know what I mean? Yeah. But you're continually having to prove yourself. But I think once you've established that sense of whatever, that emperor's new clothes thing, then you can do anything. I mean, there's a lot of shitty directors doing really well because they're propped up, and there's some great ones that aren't being recognized, I think, just because no one's given them that vote of confidence.
And what are your goals for the future?
Comedy. Toronto's hard. Canada's hard, right? It's where I'm based. It's hard, but it's also good. I think there's sort of a new generation of comedy coming up in Canada, which is great. Comedy Network's a big part of that, and like Picnic Face, all those other sketch comedy shows, whatever. I mean, they're really, I think it's sort of a new generation coming up, which I want to be a part of, which is great. Can only help people like Kenny so much. I'm kidding. Actually, Kenny's helped me a lot too. But that's cool, and I want to be a part of that wave, next generation. So. And
where's the best place to find out more information on you and what you're up to online?
My website, www.kluwer.ca, or Google me. I'm on IMDb, whatever. So.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Sebi, and congratulations on all of your success, and best of luck with your upcoming projects.
Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome. I'm Katie Uhlmann reporting for Katie Chats here in Toronto, Ontario.